Hello, and thank you for joining me on another one of these little introductions to concepts that can help us understand ourselves and the world we live in better. This time we're looking at how we convert the reality that's out there into our own individual maps so that the world makes more sense to us. I trust you find it interesting. We're looking at how is it that we make sense of and perceive the world outside of us. We probably don't know all the answers yet, but one thing that we are sure of is that each and every one of us sees or represents that world, that reality differently. There's no right or wrong to this, but every map is amazingly different. So we start off by how do we experience the world? Well, we bump up against it out there. We see things in pictures, we hear sounds, we feel feelings, we touch things, we notice things we bump into. We smell some of the things we knock up against, and we taste things. So it's our full five senses that allow us to notice and experience what's going on in the world. But what's really interesting is that then those pictures, sounds, tastes, and smells come in and go through a series of filters, many different filters, and change those into something else. So go through filters, and some of the filters include sensory preferences. Some of us are very much more akin to paying attention to what we see, the visuals. Others of us, what we hear, the auditory. Others like the kinesthetic, the feeling, the emotional sense, and the tactile sense of things. So that can make a difference to the information we choose to bring in. Language. Language creates wonderful opportunities for us to understand things. It also provides some limitations in what we notice. Language provides a framework for what we can appreciate. It's a very fascinating area to look into. Also, our values and our beliefs, which we know are very personal. So, value is something that's important to us. Depending on what's important to us, we will pay more attention to what's going on out there in the world. We look out for things that support our values and we notice those things that go against our values. And beliefs too. So a belief is simply something that you believe, an individual believes is true. It's true for them. So as we go around the world, we look out for things that reinforce those beliefs for us. We notice the things that support those beliefs, whether it's that certain populations are good or bad drivers, whether it's that the world's a happy place and things are looking great out there, or whether the world is a bit of a scary place. We can see how that will affect what we notice about what's going on around us. And we also have our own thinking styles and habits, ways of thinking, preferred ways of thinking. Some of us love to look at details, some of us go big picture, some of us look out for things that are similar and patterns, others of us look for things that are different. Some of us like things to be new and innovative and changing all the times. Of us prefer it when things are more stable and static. Now, through all these filters, there seems to be three key ways that the filtering process operates. The first of those is deletions. So there's so much going on out in the world. There's so much to see, so much our eyes pick up, our ears hear, and we feel that it would go crazy if we had to take in all that information. So our unconscious mind cleverly deletes some of the information and filters out the stuff that's less useful and allows the most useful information to come in for us. So there's actually information that we miss. Even if you look around your room now, you'll realise that there's certain things that you don't pay attention to very much at all. The second way the filtering process happens is through distortions. How we recall and remember things differently to how we actually experienced them in actual time out there in the real world, as it were. When we have an experience, for instance, of attending a meeting with someone else or even a social gathering, and you may hear that other person recall that event sometime later and not necessarily very much later, and you wonder to yourself, now what I'm hearing that person saying about that meeting or that gathering is so different to my recollection. They noticed this, I didn't even see that happening. So already we can see that things get distorted. And again, it's to help things fit better to our map of the world, our pre-existing map of the world. We look for things that make it easier to understand the world as we understand it. And the third area of filtering or process of filtering is really this technique we have of generalizing, where the language that we use when we're generalizing or that indicates that we are generalizing in the way we're saving and storing information is we say it's always like this. And you'll notice we say it's always like this, but really, aren't there one or two occasions where it's not like that? We talk about every time, everyone. And if we actually wonder and slow down and think about all the instances that things have occurred or groupings of things, it's very unusual for every and always to be truisms. We also we create groups of things and groups of people. We talk about those people, children. Um, we form assumptions and create new filters as we experience new events. Again, it's to simplify the world out there that is pretty complex. What's important is that we realize that these processes are happening, that we're not actually able to re-experience reality as it actually is. What we're doing is we're taking in information, we're experiencing it through our senses, and then it goes through a series of filters that help us manage and sort information and sift out what will be most useful to us. So it goes through those filters and we end up with a map, a personal map of internal representations and memories and pictures, sounds, feelings, smells, and tastes that allow us to create a map of the world for ourselves personally. But what's important is that it can be very far removed from the actual experience of what went on out there. It's a map, a personal map that's unique to us and very different from everyone else's. There's as many different maps as there are people. Well, amazing, isn't it? We all have our own individual maps of the world. I wonder what's the impact of knowing that. Realizing that your map and my map are very different, and that neither yours or mine or anyone else's is any truer or more right than anyone else's. If you want to discuss this or any other development areas, do get in touch.